Farmers feeding feed cows. Lakers PBB. They're luckier than O'Leary's cows. Yeah, we'll go away. I got PBB made. Drive the tonic coming so soon. I got PBB made. Money set up places too. I got PBB made. Thugs coming from Love Canal. I got PBB made. Dustin Prince and Sad Pal. I got PBB in me. Dig deep into the ground. Right in your backyard. There's poison all around. Once can't see gun hood still. Now my kids are feeling ill. At the local landfill. They poison us, we foot the bill. I got PBB made. They tell us it's for our own good. I got PBB made. But they don't tell us why. I got PBB made. It's not a different made of wood. I got PBB made. It's not when moms cry. I've got PBB in me. Dig deep into the ground. Right in your backyard. Like poison all around. All these things are done behind our back. Against the codes of laws and all that. It's question of control. Push body, mind, and your soul. Thank you, Governor Milliken.
Well, there was sort of a new wave scene going, and I think maybe I might have seen the Nick Garvey band at the time, which later became the Blue Hawaiians. They were getting into the new wave thing, and they would do, Elvis Costello songs and stuff of that ilk. And I'd seen them a couple of times, and I'd go to the various bars. I just got out of high school, graduated '78, and I was looking for a scene and wasn't finding it. And then I heard about Mike-a-Tam Lounge was having a so-called New Wave night. So I went up there. That was done probably 1980. And trying to remember, can't remember if it was just records or if the Pranks were playing. But I'd go out, hang up there and see all types of people. The whole spectrum, new wave, punk rock, it was all kind of mixed together. And band the Pranks played, was mainly a cover band, had a couple of originals. They would do songs like some of the new wave stuff, UK subs, was it Teenage Kicks was a song, I think was a big one. Mm-hmm. And they had a few original songs that were pretty good. Heart Attack and Animal Farm, which was one of my favorites because they would throw cheap stuffed animals out into the crowd and we'd just rip them apart and stuffing all over the place, and it was a big mess. But that was when the first real new wave punk scene was really there, because people were into the music, starting to get into the music. It was mainly covers, and you'd be people like Don Lawrence, aka Johnny Slash. He was wearing leather, yeah, and he'd make his own leopard skin pants and such.
No Hot Topic back then, kids.
What about chest cane?
Yeah, exactly. So that was as far as the bar scene, it was mainly cover, new wave, and a few of the bands had a punk attitude. The Pranks were, for the new wave bands that were out in the bars, they were a bit more punk than most of them. They had a little bit more punk sensibility. I didn't really know anybody, being I graduated from Holly, and I just didn't really know anybody. And the thing that got me into the scene more or less, right here, Stroh's beer. Because Jeff Miltline and them, they looked over, saw I was drinking the Stroh's, and invited me over to the table because I was drinking Stroh's. That must have been pretty cool. And so they did the Mike-a-Tam Lounge thing for a while. And I think that was one night a week. I can't remember if it was a Sunday night or Tuesday. But we had to find someplace else to go the rest of the night, so Mr. G's Lounge, Nick Garvey Band once again. We'd all hang out there and just, do the crazy new wave thing and, slam into each other. This was before Mosh. We didn't really understand what slamming was about. We'd just knock into each other ridiculously hard. It was really stupid. But, there was very little media coverage of this, and we didn't know what's the proper way to mosh, or, well, they didn't call it moshing back then. That's more of a metal thing. And then, I met Jeff Mentline and his guys, and we went down to the Omni Hall. It was called Snotties, and that's where I first saw the Rub. And the Rub, crazy ass sort of metal weird band with, car hood hung up behind the drum set that they would use for a gong, like Emerson, Lake and Palmer or something. They were doing crazy original songs, Eat Bananas, and Life on Planet Burke, and Knuckle Sandwich, and they were also fellow Stroh's drinkers, Vitamin S, and so we got along great. And
Let me kick in here.
yeah, go ahead.
All right, here's my experience. My older brothers were in bands. My older brothers are 2 and, a year and a half and 3 years older than me. So they were in bands. We all grew up in Swartz Creek. They were in this cover/wedding band, would play wedding receptions and so forth throughout maybe like 77, 78. When their singer up and left with no notice right before a show one time, they said, screw it, we don't like playing this stuff anyway, we like playing this new music we're hearing, the Ramones, Dead Boys, stuff like that. So they started playing cover songs and started writing originals. The Allrights had a kind of extensive bar scene career with the Pranks, with the Nick Garvey Band. Those guys kind of took them under their wing, got them going. They were a little bit, I think, maybe edgier than those other bands at times.
Oh yeah, definitely. Burning All the Cities, that was my personal favorite.
Yeah. But they went for a long time. Ty's older than I am, so he got a lot of this early bar scene that I didn't experience. My experience was through seeing the practices at my parents' house, and if they played hall shows and so forth. So after playing out the bars a couple times, they ran into the Rub, which, as far as I'm concerned, would be the first punk band by far, in my opinion.
Well, I would
Just
definitely
because
say, I would definitely say yes. They were the most punk. They had original songs. They had an attitude that was just so.
They were like the Iggy, T-Rex, I don't know, just all the
Bill
New York
Nelson's Red
Dolls.
Noise.
Yeah, just all that stuff thrown together in one giant, horrendous racket.
Yeah.
The first time I saw the Rub was on some hall up on Richfield Road, I think. My brother's band had just started doing the punk rock stuff after the singer left. They didn't have a name, and they got billed on the flyers X?, and they played the show. They came up with the name, the Allrights, that was spelled A-L-R-E-I-T-Z. So everybody called them Al Ritz. Is Al home? You gotta talk to Al. But the first flyer, the first hall show that I saw was with the Allrights opening for the Rub, and the Rub, man, they were loud. Were they not loud? They had
Oh yeah, they were loud. Well, you had Tom Russell playing violin of all things in this crazy punk rock mode. And Tony Rogers on bass. It was just crazy.
they billed themselves as extreme irritation, and they definitely filled that bill. Whenever you had the Rub play at a hall show, you always had them play last, because within 15 minutes, now I love the Rub, mind you, there's awesome musicians, awesome writers and stuff, but within 15 minutes of them playing, the hall would be empty.
Yeah.
They just played so loud.
Well, I think the Rub, when they first played Mr. G's Lounge, their first gig, Dan's like wearing a Lone Ranger mask, and they're up there doing their bit, and they were just into pissing people off. They didn't care. And the owner's wife, Ann, at Mr. G's, she was behind the bar, actually in tears, saying, "Make them stop, they're going to destroy our business." So,
Yeah.
so Rob definitely was probably the quintessential proto-punk band in Flint.
The first time I saw him, Tony jammed his bass up into the ceiling and Dan smashed his guitar. Tom turns around and starts smashing his violin and stuff. After the show's over with, he's like, nobody even noticed I turned around, grabbed a different violin and smashed it. I'm not smashing my good one. I thought that was funny. Anyway.
And
So then the Rub, you had then the Allrights broke up, and out of the ashes of the Allrights came Generic Society. Flint's first probably rhythm box band. Boy, rhythm boxes were in really rough shape back then too. They were horrible. And then so you had shows at the Ben Agree Hall on South Door Highway, kind of right down there by the machine shop. That were the Rub, the Allrights, Dockout Club. Dockout Club just started. Those guys were from Carmen Ainsworth, and they had gone on a band excursion to England and saw the Clash, like really on 77, 78. So
well, by band though, you mean a high school
High
band,
school
not
marching
the
band type of
Dockout
stuff.
Club
No,
tour
no.
of England.
But they came back with the punk rock reggae mix, the kind of Bad Brains thing that was really interesting.
Yeah, that was definitely cutting edge, and yeah, the Micah-Tam Lounge. Dockout Club played with Crucifix on who else was there? Was Al Southern there? I don't know. Well,
I don't remember on that one.
yeah. But anyway, I think about that time is when I met Tanya Narhai of Dissonance out at the Micah-Tam Lounge. She used to work at Hudson's in the photo department. She'd also come out to Mr. G's, see the various bands, Nick Garvey Band, The Rub, Keith Fleetwood's band, The Observers. I think Don Lawrence's band even played out there once.
First time I met Phil Hines, drummer for Dissonance, was at a party of my sister-in-law's in downtown, and somebody threw up on a piano bench. Phil, I'd never met him before. He had this just giant blazing Johnny Rotten shirt, orange, red. Coolest shirt I'd ever seen. You can't buy that stuff back
Oh,
then.
yeah.
And somebody threw up on a piano bench at this party, and my sister-in-law's like, "Oh, let me clean it up." And Phil's like, "No, I'll get it. I'll get it." Mark 3000 standing there smoking his Turkish Oval cigarette. No, leave him alone. It's a sexual thing with him. It's like, okay, so that was my experience with Phil. And going to Phil and Tanya's house and their cat with the shaved head. That was pretty funny too.
I don't remember the shaved head.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to remember, I met Phil, I think it was probably, met him once before. I went with Midline over to his house when he was doing his radio show on FBE. I think I met him once then, and then they had Spooky 1980, which was Despise with Don Lawrence, Johnny Slash's band. I think Dan Boyer was in the band. I think Dockout Club played, and
Just like a Devil's Night show or something.
and the Necros from at that time Maumee, Ohio. Now I think about it, I was thinking Musical Suicide was the first out-of-state band, but I guess it would have been the Necros, who were putting on fake English accents. Was really ridiculous. Yeah, I met Phil, and I think it was in one of these phases where he was not bathing, but he was an interesting character. Young, shaved-headed.
And they were originally Dead Bird Bodies, right? Phil and Tanya, and Dead Bird Bodies turned into Dissonance.
Right, I believe so. I think I don't know where I saw that already discussed. Maybe it was on the DVD with the Dissonance record.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
but whatever. I think mainly it's
Word of mouth.
Word of mouth or flyers. Before Doug's, there was Ace Record Exchange on 2nd Street downtown.
And Rockarola.
Rock-a-Rolla Records.
Several locations.
Yeah. I mean, you know, despite those guys being older and having more of the, you know, I guess you would call it commercial mainstream interest, they worked in the record stores, and that's where you got your information, you know, there were people would post, hell, even sometimes people would take flyers and they'd post them up on the bulletin boards that were in grocery stores. They'd put them any place they could get away with it, you know, it may not have stayed up very long, but maybe somebody would have saw it.
How many people would usually attend the early shows?
I think it was as far as the hall shows, I think there was usually at least 40 people or more.
Yeah, I was gonna say 50.
Yeah.
40 or 50? Okay, so the hall shows came from the bar shows from the late 70s. Who took the initiative, you can remember, to get the hall shows together? Was it the bands?
When I started going to hall shows, it was the Rub that started putting them on. And once the All Rights broke up, Generic Society started going, then we started putting on shows. Generic Society and Political Silence after that, putting on shows, and pretty much it was in the Political Silence era that Joel started taking over the show duties, I think, pretty much.
Yeah, basically it was a bands. There were some individuals that would have just parties, their birthday party, they'd get talked to, they'd know the band, and then they'd run out the hall and have the band play for their party. Sometimes it was just the band, like for instance, Blair's early band, Free Cheese. I think that was Blair, Brad Morley, I don't remember the other people.
Brad Ambrose sang for him from Dachau Club.
All right, Brad Ambrose. They'd have
oh, not Free Cheese, I'm thinking of Slick.
yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think Brad Ambrose he was still doing Dachau Club at the time. But, I'm not even sure they were called Free Cheese at the time, but they would have house parties and, you know, basically they'd say, oh, we're playing, and they'd come over and they'd have a keg of beer, and you pay like, you know, $1 or $2 for your little red Solo cup, and you were good to go.
Hall parties in the early days were a lot different. You used to be able to drag as much alcohol as you could carry into one.
Yeah, the Teamsters Hall show, there'd be, you know, people just, sometimes there'd be bands, sometimes there'd be just record spun. I remember one where Phil was just the DJ, and he was playing, you know, whatever records he felt like playing at the time. And people are still having a good time, jumping, dancing like maniacs, doing stage dives off the stage with no band, but, you know, lots of beer and lots of craziness. And trying to think where else there's the Teamsters Hall.
I remember the show starting at the Ben Agree Hall. That was the first shows that I went to, were the Rub shows. Ben Agree Hall. Then we moved to Kish McGrotto, the Ukrainian Hall.
And
Where we got kicked out of so many halls in Flint.
well, and
it was all, oh, somebody broke an ashtray, so you can't rent here anymore.
And going back to this party thing, it'd be like I think Sue Baker or Baker Sisters rented out of all places the National Guard Armory, and they had Dachau Club, the Linkletters, who were I think from Kalamazoo, and Strolling Bones.
Society, L7.
But yeah, National Guard Army of all places, and that was some great stage diving. That was probably the perfect height stage, and I don't know, just unbelievable to me. I don't know if there's any footage of that any place, but
I would say early on, when there was a lot of mix between the new wave and the punk rock stuff, that was kind of one set, and then it evolved into a more punk rock scene.
well, yeah, that'd be once Dissonance was fully formed, and then you got into the Prospect Hall, and that's when I think things started to evolve into a sort of a younger, more pissed off, more active participation in the scene. There were, you know, people were there, do it yourself. It wasn't, we're not taking what's being handed to us, you know. It was, everybody was doing things on their own creative level, and, you know, it was just, it had nothing to do with the mainstream, you know. It's like, you couldn't even buy t-shirts for these bands, and, you know, most of these bands weren't even making t-shirts. You'd make your own damn t-shirt, you get out your felt pens and make a t-shirt. That's what it was all about, you know.
Kind of like the central location where you could put out flyers, you could take your tapes up there and you'd sell them for a modest commission, and you know, Doug was gold as far as that's concerned. Well, see, I knew Doug when he worked at Rock-A-Rolla, so I don't see the major transition personally, but I think more because he would just carry such a totally different line of merchandise than,
Well,
you know, even than Rock-A-Roll. You know, they did to a certain extent, but
well, like Ace Record Exchange, they really didn't have anything that catered to the local scene. I don't think actually anybody had anything.
there was no recorded local scene stuff at that time.
Exactly. So Ace Record Exchange had they had packed up and left town to skip out on their lease before any of that developed.
Yeah, Ace was the first record store around. He was around in what, 79, 78, 79 maybe?
Yeah, I'd say so.
And we'd be getting these, I'd bought all sorts of like early Damn singles and stuff like, early UK punk rock stuff was probably
And
worth
plus
a
he had
bit
a
now.
whole bunch of bootleg albums
Mhm.
which he got a small bit of trouble with. And yeah, but Doug was the one, once people started making homemade cassettes, he was the guy that was willing to sell them. Rock-A-Rolla wasn't going to like deal with, you know, somebody's little cassette that they wanted to sell for $3 and you know this whole commission deal. Rock-A-Rolla wasn't into that. It was straight up business. Doug loved the music, and that's the whole difference. And he was willing to put up with the hassle of dealing with, you know, buying the product or getting the people their money back and keeping all that stuff straight. So that's basically it. I can't really think of anybody that really did anything, can you?
No,
Marty 3000 made a record which didn't get
Before-
distributed. He was probably the first person that ever had any vinyl, but I never even got a copy of it until, must have been late 80s, so.
yeah, the first product I remember him having was like the Generic Society stuff and.
Oh yeah, Generic Society, yeah. I
Generic
forgot.
Society, Guilty Bystanders, Broccoli Rules, Live at Wild Bill's. What year were those guys?
84 for Red Wild Bulls and 85 for Broccoli Rules.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
So Dachau Club, I think they did their vintage cassette
Mhm.
covered their early years. It was maybe released in 84, 85, same
Actually,
time.
their vintage cassette covers their whole career. If you want the real gem, what you need to do is get the FBE tapes, which I once upon a time had and will kill somebody if I ever find out who took them. Tim Table in Detroit, look him up. He's got the original recordings of the Dachau Club FBE sessions. You need to get that stuff on there. That's awesome stuff. Awesome stuff.
What about the Rub? Did they ever put tapes out?
The Rub, if you can get a hold of the stuff, have 4 90-minute cassettes worth, which, again, I loaned to somebody. See, I was the house that the band practiced at, and so every time anybody came over, I'd be loaning stuff out and not writing down where it went. I lost all sorts of good
I
stuff.
don't think the Rub ever actually even went
They
to
never
the-
released anything for
Yeah.
sale.
Yeah, they didn't went to the trouble to market it. They might give somebody a copy, hey, this is what we're doing, and, you know, rub that awful noise in my head. Dan always thought that was the best compliment I ever paid his band, that the Rub most closely approximated the awful noise I heard in my head. I don't think I really was aware of the Take No Prisoners show. Chuck Miltline had mentioned Phil's Anarchy show, and I might have heard part of one once. And I do remember driving around town one night and flipping the radio, and I'm like, what the hell? Somebody's playing the Cramps, which just didn't happen then, doesn't happen now, basically. And then, through them, showing up at the, dissonance shows, I eventually met Ben Hamper and them, and actually, I don't think I ever really met him until after the ING fanzine, interview. And that's when I became much more aware of WFB, and,
Was it just the bands plugging in and getting up there?
Pretty much the bands just got up and played, and
every now and then somebody, every now and then somebody jump up on stage and grab a mic, but it wasn't anything thought out.
Yeah.
I may have even done it once or twice, so either took it upon myself or the band might have asked me, but nothing that was that memorable or worth mentioning.
we couldn't announce upcoming shows because there never were any. I mean, there was not that frequency. The shows were once every 3 months or something, or every 6
Yeah.
months or something like that, very infrequent. And you never knew from one show to the next what hall they'd be at because we kept on getting kicked out of halls. I only remember one show, John, being shut down by the police, and that was a Fear of Failure show, which was Political Silence's short-lived successor. And I got jumped by skinheads in the bathroom, and it kind of turned into a little riot, and that got shut down. But other than that, I don't remember anything.
Yeah, I don't remember any real police harassment. You had more trouble with, just the, I guess for lack of a better term, the straight people, or.
We tried to choose halls in industrial areas. That really helped.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
seriously, like the Kishmagrado Hall was excellent because there was nothing around it that was open at that time of night.
Yeah, but unfortunately, that was, I can't remember which show, the one where, Angry got beat up by
Yeah.
some,
Pickup truck load of bird nights with baseball bats and
Yeah.
stuff.
and they just.
Gotta beat up that faggot punk rocker.
Yeah, and he's the guy wearing the AC/DC t-shirt, and well, I guess he's also the one that, flipped off the guys that called him a punk rock faggot, so gotta give credit to old, Kevin.
One of my favorites was when Dachau Club opened for the Crucifix at the Micotan Lounge. There was this lady, the old lady that used to sing with all the bands around town.
Rosie.
Rosie would sing Bill Bailey, and usually with she'd sit in with some jazz band or something, but she showed up at the Micotan Lounge that night and asked Dachau Club if she could sing Bill Bailey, and they did this really cool reggae version of Bill Bailey behind her while everybody's out there skanking in front. It was just so fun.
Yeah. And I think, the show that really, set off the Flint scene in the 80s, where things really took off, was, definitely the, Godspeed, Dissonance, Out of Order, 7 Second show. That was the show where the energy level just came right up, and everybody was just so into it. And it was, great moshing, or I keep saying mosh, and I hate that term. It was just the energy level, the spirit of the whole event. That's when I think everything really came together.
A lot of camaraderie back then, somebody falling on the floor and people would actually pick them up. We always got compliments from other, from out of town bands. You guys are humans here. You don't trample your injury.
And I think also something before that Prospect Hall show was, when Tempter played with Dissonance, and you had the new speed metal, I don't think it was death metal at that time, meeting the punk rock thing. We had the headbangers, and you had the punk rockers, hardcore people, and we both had a show, and we were like, hey, these guys are cool too, they may have long hair and we may have shaved heads, but these guys are all right. And although I did have a problem later with the crossover, it's sort of like that old Reese's commercial. I'm like, who put the metal in my hardcore? I'm like, I like the two separate things. And when they kind of crossed over, it was bound to happen, but that fusion stuff I really didn't care for. I just soon had my death metal, had my hardcore, but what are you going to do?
Were you at the MDC show?
No, I think I went fishing.
We booked MDC, the Crucifix, Political Silence, and Repulsion, I think. if I'm not mistaken. For lack of a better place, we booked it at the Prospect Hall, which is a small building, maybe 20 by 20 or so. I don't know, really small. Anyway, I remember all night long, the security guard was pulling out his hair going, oh my God, where's the guy who rented this hall? I need to find him to tell him we're shutting it down. Joel was the guy that rented the hall. Joel's like constantly dodging this guy all night long.
He was really old, he didn't move fast.
That was great time though. You know, Joel, here he comes. Where's that guy at?
It was funnier when Dale Kriska and Elvis had to go return the key. And when they went, because we told them we were renting the hall for a going away party for a friend joining the service, because we couldn't rent halls for shows anymore. And Dale and Elvis came back and said, oh my God, that guy wants you in jail.
Well, for me, I made the mistake of getting married.
It was the same thing for me.
Yeah, basically, that was a killer, and I think it was also the advent of grunge and after Nirvana. 1990, Sonic Youth did a movie regarding their tour with Nirvana. They call it 1991, the year punk rock broke. Yeah, well, who's going to fix it? And that was the grunge. I mean, I had liked some of it, but that's when things started to go downhill for me. And I mean, over the years, I'd go to occasional shows, and I don't know, some of the later bands, you know, Freakies and stuff like that, who are doing older style material. I appreciate that, but I'd say right about then was where interest dropped off a bit.
See, I got married, and for the most of the time that I was married, I kind of lost track of the scene. Then I got divorced, and I joined the Guilty Bystanders and started playing more shows again. And then I got married, but still played with the Guilty Bystanders. But now I have kids, so it's kind of sketchy now.
What do you think of the scene that exists today?
I don't know that there really is a scene. I mean, it comes and goes in spurts.
I'm so out of touch, I can't answer that question.
I mean, there's a few bands, like I said, a few bands I like, somewhat Slack and Freakies, but they're mostly doing covers, and it's older style music, which is probably not very relevant to the younger generation. And yeah, a lot of the few of the younger bands I've seen, it's just not for me. You know, it's not made for me. So
I would say first and foremost, all the money that we made as a band. You know, with all the cash that we rolled in. No, it was fun. The camaraderie, the different bands, having friends in all the different bands. Political Silence put an advertisement in Maximum Rock and Roll, and from that I became pen pals with people in Australia, Germany, Italy, California, all over the place. In fact, it's kind of funny, I was pen pals with this guy in a band called the Painkillers from Buffalo, New York, and I later joined the Rats of Unusual Size, who were from New York. Come to find out that the drummer from the Painkillers was in the Rats for a while, so small world of punk rock there. And that's it. I think that the most magical thing was when you had these famous bands come into town. You talked to them before the show, you talked to them after the show. There wasn't that wall between musician and audience. I mean, they were just usually cool guys, girls, whatever, who showed up and played a show. Very rarely were the bands idiots. Seems like suicidal tendencies were kind of idiots, weren't they?
yeah, a little bit, but
Stealing some of the girls' earrings or something. I don't know.
I don't know anything about that.
Ancient history by now.
So do you guys still listen to the old the punk stuff?
I can't say that I really do. I've never been really that much for nostalgia. Every now and then, maybe, but not that much. I'm all over the map as far as my listening taste, and like I said, just going back, like just in this record probably the first time I listened to it was when they re-released it, you know, it's probably the first time I listened to it in 10 years. Maybe, I don't know.
I don't tend to listen to a lot of the local stuff, but I do tend to listen to a lot of the late '70s punk rock, you know, British punk rock, New York scene type of stuff is what I tend to listen to.
I can't say I'm terribly proud of any of it. It's just something I did, you know, I'm like, you know, I took pictures, you know, bands wanted photos for one reason or another. People put out fanzines like Phil's Toast to the Good Life. One thing I did do was Phil, on one issue of Toast to the Good Life, got back his copies. The print shop like screwed them up and it cut all wrong, and I loaned him the money to get it redone, I think. And I think that made him quite happy to, you know, because it was totally screwed up and it needed to be redone. I gave him the money for that. But other than that, you know, the whole punk rock thing for me was just an excuse to run wild and be a jackass, and people let me do it.
I was really happy with how the Generic Society cassette came out, because basically, pretty much after the whole Generic Society era was over with, we collected all the live and all the stuff that we had done, just bouncing tracks and 2 tracks in the studio, and we just kind of melded it all together and came out with this 90-minute tape that I thought was pretty representative of what we did. As far as Political Silence, I hate the sound of that album. We had the worst producer in the world. It's just horrible. I can't listen to that crap. Speaking of crap, I engineered quite a few things myself.
I think I don't have any plans. It's just like when I originally took the photos. It was just spur of the moment. I felt like picking up the camera that day or that particular show. I did. You know, it's fly by the seat of the pants, and you know, that's about it. You know, but really don't see any plan on doing anything.
I'm a member of the Guilty Bystanders, as far as I know. I'm a member of the Noose, which is basically kind of that Swartz Creek scene, the Generic Society group that's with a couple Guilty Bystanders. I consider myself an active member, even though I have a couple young kids right now and I'm not as active as I would like to be.
What do your kids think of your music?
My kids are too young.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Or at least I haven't subjected them to it. Maybe that's the answer. Well, that was more Ty that I heard talk than the first 10 years that I heard.